Hey, how's it going? So hey Akshata, I've never done one of these before, so work with me here. I've never talked to a wall like this, or screen, um, but hopefully it goes pretty well. I'll just wait a moment while some people come in. Hey Nia, hello mom. um, so I'm in my studio currently. It doubles as a room as well, which is pretty handy actually, because it's not a long trip, not a long commute to my studio, a couple feet. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna be showing some stuff. I'm excited to answer some questions. I like to talk about my art. I learn something new every single time I talk about it, so I find it's a pretty productive experience, and it's nice to connect with people. Got a fair amount of people here. How's everyone doing? Got some waves. So first I'm gonna just show around my studio. Like I said, it doubles as a room. Um, that's my bed. And we got some nice sunlight shining in with the trees blooming. Starting to look pretty. Not that the weather is corresponding, but uh, the rain is fine. I like the white noise. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. I'm just gonna wipe my screen or my camera. A lot of stuff going on. It's pretty hectic. Um, Fairly unchanged since I was 10, probably, when we got the furniture. But I have my laptop here. This is where most of the work happens. And this is the beautiful pendulum, which I will talk a lot about more later. It's my best friend. Doesn't have a name, but so I'm Shane Ackerley. Here, I'm just gonna comment my Instagram so you guys can follow me if you're not already. And I'll try to pin that. Pinned. Awesome. So, I haven't been really affiliated with Arts Etobicoke that much, but I have a lot of friends that have. Hi, Michaela. Nice to meet you too. I have a lot of friends at school that have had their art in shows at Arts Etobicoke. Grace had a solo show that was incredible. Um, so I go to Etobicoke School of the Arts, ESA. I'm in grade 12, pretending to graduate virtually soon. So in September, the plan is to go to Western for astrophysics. Um, it was kind of an odd decision having to weigh art versus science, because to me they've always been kind of equal, and I've kind of merged them. They've kind of been the same thing. Um, so it was hard, maybe, the thought of giving up one for the other. But I ended up just saying, you know what, if anyone's gonna go into science and keep learning, it's me. Like, I love to learn. I feel like the curiosity that I have would kind of be going to waste if I didn't just continue to learn. And then making things, I feel like I have the drive for that anyways, so I hope I'll continue making things. We'll see how that all goes. Yeah. So ended up choosing astrophysics, which, if you're not clear on what that is, it's basically astronomy, physics, like astro meaning stars, and then physics. So it's basically the study of the cosmos from a scientific perspective, the physics of everything from subatomic particles to galaxies and the whole universe and the origin of the universe, the Big Bang, all that stuff just fascinates me. I think most people, if they claim to not be fascinated by it, they're suppressing something, because it seems to me to be a pretty primal thing. Yeah, so basically, the way that emerges in my art, I work with metaphors. So, kind of this very start of my process is, okay, what have I learned? So, what is something that I've learned in my life that is important to me, and it's changed, it's benefited me a lot and changed the way I look at the world for the better, and allowed me to improve on myself in any way. And how can I share that with others, and would it be useful to share with others? So the first kind of metaphor I started using was, let's compare like my relationship with another person, or any given person's relationship with any given person or thing, just the relationship between things. Let's compare that with the way cosmic bodies interact, so stars and planets. So, for example, the Earth orbiting the sun. The sun seems to just be standing still, but really there's a pull on both of them, and the Earth is orbiting the Earth. The Earth is orbiting the sun, but they're both feeling each other's pull, just the same. Just the sun happens to be, for whatever reason, showing it less because it's more massive. So the medium, at first, actually, right here it was framed as a Christmas gift, which, thanks, Mom and Dad. This was the first time I ever made art relating to space, and my love for space and my fascination for all of it. And you can see this texture. It's literally just scribbles. Well, not just scribbles, it's scribbles. And it's literally me just with a pen just scribbling. And so in detail, it's really chaotic and messy and seems to have no order. But on the whole, it creates something you can kind of decipher and put together in your mind and understand. So in this case, an object like a black hole or a star, and the field of space and time around it, which basically what I'm doing is kind of trying to draw the negative space around an object, draw what we don't see in space and in life. So the metaphor is space-time, the field of space-time, revealing what is affecting it and what it's impacting it. So I have some more drawings here. So that's the style. Kind of, you can feel some waves and some texture going through it. That's intentional. And it's kind of reminds me how I go about life. The way it's, on the whole, it's planned out. And there's a general idea of what I'm going to do. So I've mapped it out and I know what it's going to look like. But in detail, like day to day, it really is messy and chaotic, and it's really split-second decisions of where my hand will go next. So that reminds me a lot about the way I go about doing things. So if there are any questions, feel free to ask. I love questions. That is the most important part of science, is asking questions, and it's really the only way to achieve progress. Any other color besides black? I've had a lot of trouble with this. Thanks for the question, by the way. I've always had trouble with that because obviously it seems like a natural step is to use color, but then I feel like I don't know, I want to get to the core, like most pure way of conveying the idea, and different colors just starts to distract and maybe evokes things that are besides the point. I'm not sure the best way to explain it. Like, yeah. Yeah, I've just never found it to feel right for me, like the right next step. I made some stuff with Lego before, which you can see on my YouTube. Thanks. On my YouTube or on my website. The decomposition amalgamation series, where I was kind of exploring my past, and that right away, Lego, like I'm that just made sense for me. The building blocks, the pieces of that put me together, that created me, that made sense for me, and so it was really my only colorful work that I've ever made, and that just felt right. But when I'm exploring like scientific concepts and things outside of things that are like I can't perceive, the field of space-time, like the gravitational field between planets. So to assign a color to it is kind of filtering it through my perception, which I'm generally try to avoid, trying to get the most pure way, because we see a certain spectrum of light, which is only like a tiny bit of the full spectrum of electromagnetic waves, which is just what light is. Thank you, Lily. Thank you. Yeah, it seemed right for the drawings. But yeah, if you see the Lego work, it's definitely colorful. There wasn't really any way around that, but it felt right for sure. So, I guess I can talk a bit about the pendulum. This is my most recent work. And if you haven't seen the final product, even though it's really still in the process, you can go to my Instagram. It's I pinned it down there in the comments. It's a tracing of the pendulum. So here's a kind of the work in progress. I'm tracing the motion of the tip of the double pendulum. And then I animate it so that it follows it along. And really where that came from was just kind of looking back on my life and trying to pick out what are the most significant things in the past year that shaped, like, what realizations can I extract from my experiences. And right away I was like, unpredictability. It just, like, the last year of my life just hit home. Wow, life is unpredictable. So that I ended up getting in, it led me down a rabbit hole of research into chaos theory, which is a kind of bizarre realm of science where there's an understanding that everything in the universe is chaotic and we cannot predict the future at all. So you see it in weather. Hey Chris, how's it going? You see it in weather, where basically every weather prediction, like meteorologists are actors basically, because everything they say is just a guess. They're trying to measure as precisely as they can, but the smallest, tiniest, like a butterfly flapping its wings. That's where the butterfly effect came from. A butterfly flapping its wings can change the course of a hurricane, where it'll end up or how long it'll last, and just minor things. And in science, they call it sensitive dependence on initial conditions. So the tiniest difference in initial conditions will be exaggerated throughout the process of the system and result in completely different outcomes. So a single pendulum is stable, the opposite of chaotic, where you drop it and it just you can take its initial trajectory and you'll be able to almost exactly predict where it'll end up or its path. Whereas the double pendulum, where here I'll set it up. So I have a little way of setting it up here. You drop it and it's completely chaotic. And every single time I drop it, it'll show me something different. It'll give a different path. And that just kind of made a lot of sense to me. It felt relatable. Upon learning that, it just made sense. Here's like my lifetime has any moment in my life has the potential to have enormous influence on my future. Has enormous influence on my future, and it ends up just being a reminder to live in the moment, to not dwell on the past, because you can't, it's not worth regretting things, because if you look at this one thing that I feel like I did wrong, that I regret, anything surrounding that, any tiny detail could have set it off course and allowed my life to not go as planned. And really, plans are just predictions, because I'm predicting if I do these certain things, my plan will occur. What I'm planning will occur. Thank you, Lily. Yeah, it's so current. Oh my gosh. I just, I'm so glad I learned all this just now coming into what's going on with the pandemic, because it's just so current. It's just so hard to accept when things don't go as planned, and we all, like, everyone on the planet feels robbed of something right now. Everyone had plans for something, and everyone feels robbed of that, and it's hard not to want to just talk about that and complain about it, but we just have to try to remember, like, there was no guarantee that this would go as planned. There's no guarantee that, like, you cannot predict the future. We cannot predict the weather. We cannot predict even something as simple as a pendulum with only 2 axes of rotation. Yeah. So that's the pendulum. I'm still making them. I'm trying to make as many as I can of the paths, because I feel like the more I have, it's kind of like a set of data. The more I have, the more accurate of a conclusion I can make. The easier it is to say, yes, every single time it will be different. Because I can't actually do the math to prove it, because I don't understand the math to prove it. But there is math to back it up somewhere. So about now, I think I'm going to take it downstairs where I have some drawings. I have the biggest drawing I did, which I did fairly recently, finished it around the start of the quarantine, and it is called The Earth and the Moon, and here we are. So there's my foot. So that's about the size of it. It's 7.5 feet by 3.5 feet. So the one thing that always bugged me with my drawings was just, they're not scientifically true. They've always just been me kind of imagining something, which is fine, especially for art, but I felt like it would be more powerful if it was something that we actually know of, and I'm just emphasizing the distance, just like the distance between two minds in whatever is between us. So there's the moon. It's that size, you can see, and the scale is 1 to 200 million. So this is the Earth and the moon to scale 200 million times smaller than reality. Thanks, guys. I had been deterring. I had been in denial about making a really big one, but it was about time. So there's the moon, and over here is Earth, about that size. And Earth actually has a pretty large moon as far as moons go, which is basically why we have the tides, because the moon has such a strong pull on Earth. And then here I have a drawing that I'm currently working on. I just started. Yeah, so it's funny. People always say, "Oh my gosh, that must have taken you so long." It does take a while, and it definitely is excruciating. I can vouch for that, but it really is just scribbling, which allows it to kind of go by quicker than a painting of this size would, I know. But yeah, it is a lot of room to fill. I mean, lots of my drawings, like my biggest drawings before this would have been about half the size, and the circles would have been bigger. It was just a lot of space to fill, because there is a lot of space between the Earth and the moon, which we never really do realize. Yeah, how do you stay motivated to complete it? Does it get too tedious to handle at times? I think I often surprise myself with how much patience I have. I always assume I'm really impatient, probably just because day-to-day things that aren't as important to me, I have a lot less patience. But when it's something that I've decided I'm doing this and I want to complete it, and throughout the process of completing it, my mind isn't changed about that, in terms of the concept. And it's like, if the concept is still important to me, I'm going to want to complete it, and I'm going to want to be able to show it to the world and share it with people. Yeah, I don't think I've ever really started one and not finished it. Yeah. Yeah, keep the questions coming. These are awesome questions. Thanks, guys. In fact, I actually, in case you guys want to see, I'm just going to get the pen to show you guys how it looks when I'm doing the scribbling. The background story for my current work in progress. I'm assuming you mean the pendulum. Yeah, I kind of explained that. It started off with looking back on how my life has gone the past year. Oh, the drawing. Yeah, it's actually pretty awesome. I decided, okay, I'm gonna do something real. I'm gonna like look up the measurements of the distances between certain cosmic bodies, and I'm gonna draw them to scale. Until I actually did the research, I didn't realize how insanely, like, of all people, like, I'm obsessed with space. It's my favorite hobby. Of all people, I should understand the distances, but really, until you try to put it to scale, it's astonishing. You can't even fathom. I basically ended up finding out that if the sun was like that big, then Neptune would be like a kilometer away. It's like Neptune, the farthest planet from the sun. And I basically realized like I couldn't even draw, like if I tried to draw the Earth, the distance between the Earth and the sun, and have the Earth and the sun in the drawing, the to have it a manageable scale, the Earth would have to be so small, it would be it would be between the gaps in the scribbles of my drawings. I wouldn't even be able to attempt it. So I basically just had to settle for the Earth and the Moon for now, because it was the only manageable size. And even still, it was just so much empty space to cover with scribbles and just these tiny little circles in the corners. It was actually a great experience trying to even just get in my head how big like these distances actually are. And then you can't even start to fathom like between stars you get to light years, and the galaxy is like 100 million light years across or something, and then galaxies are just so much even farther apart. It's yeah, I'm excited for next year learning about this stuff. So I have my fountain pen. I'm just gonna take it downstairs and I'll work on this drawing. It's the perfect context of space, isn't it? Yeah, really. It's really funny how perfectly they named it. Yeah, it's a lot of empty space, but more and more, like as science progresses, we realize how little of it really is empty space. Like even the distance, but even like between galaxies, the vacuum that naturally is there is only, I think, 1 particle per cubic meter, which it's not an absolute vacuum. That's as good a vacuum as you're going to find, but it's still there are things there, and then the field of space, like space time, is still there, being warped by the galaxies. It's still curved. Yeah, nothing is flat, nothing is simple. It's really really surprising. Okay, so I use a fountain pen. It's a Pilot fountain pen. Don't know what the name of it is, but I got it at Take Note in the Junction. So just to give you an idea, I try to make the scribbles a lot, as the densest they are is right around the object, because it's that's the most curved the space-time field is gonna be, and then as it goes out, it'll get sparser and sparser. Have you thought about how we physically and emotionally contract and expand? Do you factor that into your work and relate that back to space? Wow, that is brilliant, Michaela. Have you thought about how we physically and emotionally contract and expand? Okay, I'm screenshotting that. I am gonna have to think about that deeply, Michaela, because that's a really really good point. So I haven't factored that into my work, but I imagine it fits quite well. That's great. Thank you, Michaela. What planets, entities are you featuring in this drawing? Yes, I will get back to you, Michaela. What planets, entities are you featuring in this drawing? It's all until I get paper big enough and enough time to scribble for months straight, I can really only do just imaginary things. Like I even try, like maybe this one could be Jupiter and some moons, but still these moons would have to be so much smaller. So I'm really just kind of imagining something. It could even be subatomic particles moving around. I like to try to leave it open-ended. I've always tried to make it so that this can be anything to anyone. So we'll do some scribbling. So it's funny, people sometimes ask me, like, what do you do if you make a mistake? Really, the only mistake I can actually make is going through into one of the circles, or I have a border usually that I just go along. Those are the only mistakes I can make. Other than that, like, I'm really just scribbling. And I'm trying to go pretty quickly while still maintaining a fairly consistent texture. And literally the first time I ever did this style of drawing was instead of listening in math class. It was just all over my worksheets. I think in grade 10, if you look at some of my worksheets in my sketchbook as well, you'll just see all of this scribbling. And eventually I realized this could be a cool metaphor. So I often like to think of it as well as neurons bouncing around, interacting in my brain, which would basically make one drawing be a thought or a memory or something like that. Yes, classroom doodles. The best. So, in terms of inspiration, I do lots, like, I'm subscribed to so many YouTube channels about space. I follow all the NASA sub Instagram accounts like Hubble and Kennedy Space Center, all of these on Instagram, and I just basically try to just learn and just follow along our journey through discovering ourselves and the universe and all that stuff, and try to just see in what ways does this apply to me, in what ways can I learn about myself through a metaphor connecting to these things. Carl Sagan has been an amazing inspiration. Just the way he talks about everything. I've read some of his books and they're just so it's hard to describe it. So articulate and so knowledgeable, but so, like, humble, and it never feels like he's saying, here's something that I know that you don't, which is just very impressive. Because when your trade is telling people things that you know that they don't, it must be hard to seem humble like that. Neil deGrasse Tyson has some trouble with that, but I do respect his cause a lot. Yeah, so I'm really just trying to learn, trying to see different connections. It's all about making connections. Some of your other inspirations. In terms of art, I think in terms of the concept, it really does all come from life and the universe. But in terms of art making and the process, I've just learned so much from, like, Mr. Very. Everyone at ESA teaches me so much about just how to go about connecting thoughts together and connecting concepts and displaying them and conveying them and just talking about them. So it really is just so inspiring to be around those people. Very smart people, very loving and kind. It's a great place there. And I haven't really ever had the need to look elsewhere for inspiration and support. But I do some research in terms of art. I follow a lot of artists on Instagram that I try to learn from. Yeah. Also going to the AGO, going to art galleries, listening to artists talk about their art is just so inspirational and so helpful. It's just, yeah, it's funny. Like I basically just try to learn something from every single thing and everyone, because and listen, because you never know if what they have to say is going to be something that you can benefit from, even if it's not right away, even if if you come up with something yourself later and look back and say, oh, that's what they were trying to say to me, and then it just reaffirms it, and all of a sudden you have this connection with someone that doesn't even know you have a connection with them. It's cool. It works in so many different ways. Anyways, I'll go back upstairs now. Now is when you guys wonder why my house is so tidy and I pretend that we didn't scramble to clean everything up before this. So my studio. It's a lot. Oh, there's one painting I did. That's a rare thing. A traditional painting by Shane Ackerley. That is rare. I did this of my cottage. It's my cottage. That was deep in my my concussion era last year, where I was basically having trouble doing anything at all. Anything on screens mostly. And I realized I had a canvas in my basement, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna paint. See what happens. And it turned out really great. I was very happy with it. Incredibly talented. Thank you for sharing your thought and inspiration. Thank you so much. That is so sweet. Thank you, Mel. And thanks everyone for being here. It's awesome. I hope you can take some stuff away from the things I've been talking about. So there are a lot of things in my room that I could show. Like I really do personalize this place a lot. I have lots of Lego. I have the lunar lander, International Space Station, Saturn V rocket, which sent man to the moon. I have all my books, my favorites, Carl Sagan, Kurt Vonnegut, George Orwell. Yeah, there's very mind-bending. Love the scale of that large piece. Thank you. It's I wish I could do that more often. I literally had to roll it out like a scroll and not have it all unrolled at one given time when I was working on it. I wish I could. Yeah, someday, just a whole floor of paper or something. You were trying to get the landing one. Oh, it's awesome. It's a good one. You should try and get it. Yeah, Lego is kind of it's funny, I have trouble connecting it to the rest of the art I make, but I think I really do just have a love for creating things. Welcome to scroll drawing. Yes, Michaela. Yeah, you know it. The scroll. Yeah, I actually could show the pendulum. I submitted it to a gallery and wanted to have a way that it could reset itself. And sure enough, Lego was the solution. So, if you look behind here, I used gears, Lego gears. It's all Lego, but there's a battery-operated motor here. And basically, if I turn it on... Oh, there's one piece missing. If I turn it on here, it takes its time for sure, but I like to think it's kind of suspenseful. Noisy as well. So basically this piece is just rotating periodically, and it's pushing the pendulum up so that it'll fall. And see, that didn't even do much. Sometimes they're so boring, and I go to think like, oh, that one was really boring, and I try to start assigning value to it, but then I realize the whole point is that they're all beautiful, and any way it turns out is something that I can appreciate or try to appreciate. And there it goes again. Takes about 45 seconds. Just enough to get frustrated with it. Kind of like life. Yeah, I think it's a lot like life. We always try to assign value to things, and then it often ends up just leaving you frustrated because you almost never get, but you always don't always get the best thing, like you're never gonna always get whatever it was that you thought was what you needed or what you wanted. Yeah. So if anyone has any more questions, I've kind of said most that I have to say, I think. Yeah. Especially in times like these, we're all missing those moments that seem so insignificant. That is so true. Yeah, that's so true. All the tiny little things that make us who we are that we never really acknowledge, and all the tiny little things that make us happy that we never really acknowledge. Yeah, they're starting to be the things people are wanting the most. Yeah. Yeah, like it's been definitely tough. It was a very abrupt ending. I like to think it's not really an ending. Just the community we created at ESA in my year. We have so much fun. Everyone's so smart and sweet. Yeah, it's really hard not to feel like we were robbed of something like an end of the year. But I don't know. In some ways it might be easier not having to. It might be less grueling just being cut off, like ripping the Band-Aid off quickly rather than slowly. Yeah, so I'm glad everyone came out. Thanks Arts Etobicoke for the opportunity. It's awesome that they're doing this, and it's so nice to see the community thriving despite everything. It's really special. Everyone's coming together, and everyone seems to be kind of using whatever their thing is and making it something that people can enjoy and help people out. Thanks for sharing your works in space. Thank you, Akshata, for organizing this. It's awesome. All right, well, I'm going to go then. Yeah, thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you could get something from it. I know I got stuff out of it. It's always nice to talk about this stuff. It makes it clearer every time. So thank you, guys. Bye.